Starfield is the new open-universe sci-fi space RPG from Bethesda Studios, and is Bethesda's first new game universe in 25 years. There is a lot of hype for this one, and it has had a rocky release to say the least, but does the game live up to the hype? And is it deserving of some of the more negative criticism it's been receiving? Well, let's hang out and take a look as we ask the question, what's it like to play Starfield? Starfield starts you off as a lowly space miner out on your first day on the job. It's not much in the way of exciting story hooks, but it gets the job done of introducing you to your mining and interacting with the artifact pieces, the mysterious MacGuffin which will become the main focus of the central game storyline. Afterwards, you're tossed into the standard Bethesda character creation screen, where you're forced to choose a variety of polarizing and controversial personal identifiers such as hair color, nose shape, ear size, and even facial hair. It's your standard fare as far as character creation, and Bethesda didn't really do anything groundbreaking here. Your character will be featured in various ways throughout the game in key moments and cutscenes, so you do have a nice opportunity to see your work in action during gameplay. Finally, you choose your background, which helps flesh out more about who you are and what you're really good at, and then traits. Traits provide you with a substantial game bonus at the cost of some equally substantial setback. It's Bethesda's little deal with the devil that throws a nice variable into the mix when it comes to shaping your story. For example, you could have your dream home, which starts you off with a very nice and luxurious player house at the cost of a 125,000 credit mortgage which you have to pay every single week. Or you can have an adoring fan, which will occasionally bring you gifts and other perks at the cost of having a really annoying fan follow you around and pop up at the most inconvenient of times.
I can't believe I get to stand near you, breathing the same air. I've got to have every molecule.
Overall, the game intro and character creation is bland, but not bad. Bethesda didn't really seem to step outside of any comfort zones when it comes to your first steps in the game world, but with no risk, at least comes the familiar comfort of a humble RPG opening. So with that, we will give the game opening and character creation a 7 out of 10. I love the sense of adventure that Bethesda brings. Purposefully avoiding spoilers and other reviews, I wanted to go into this with an unbiased outlook. The only thing I was really expecting was Skyrim in space, so my expectations weren't that hard to meet. And I'm happy to say that I feel like I really did get more. The Starfield universe is vast, and the amount of ground that you cover in the first 10 hours or so of gameplay is pretty impressive. Problem is, it's a lot of quick travel, but to be fair, the quick travel is optional, and you could technically fly from one point to the other, but it's just disjointed cutscenes and it's so clunky. There's really no fun in the traveling through this universe. I believe more people would spend time in the game if they could physically travel to their destinations, and if the journey to it wasn't so bumpy. It's hard not to compare this disjointed interplanetary travel in Starfield to the buttery smooth ship flight of No Man's Sky.
nonsense and dedicated.
Home, folks.
All right, Barrett, you ready to play?
Piloting a ship in Starfield feels exactly like what it is, an interactive, in-game quick travel map. The only time I ever feel like I'm in actual control of my ship is during the surprisingly impressive space battles. Otherwise, you'll simply be selecting your destination from a very bland map and watching some cutscenes. It's not to say that this system is necessarily bad, it serves its purpose. It's just sort of disappointing considering a game that's really as old as No Man's Sky now, with an arguably worse initial public reception, actually has space travel figured out pretty early on. But, the poor travel systems aside, there is no right or wrong way to traverse the stars, really. Bethesda chose this method, and that's just what the game is about. The point is that the game does a good job pulling you out towards those stars. The questlines for me have had decent hooks to really start tugging at those story threads and make the temptation to complete just one more quest that much sweeter. The hours pass really quickly while getting one step closer to uncovering who's behind the stolen Hope Tech ship, or dipping your toe into the world of corporate espionage, or even the side quest of smuggling medical supplies past corrupt city officials who are trying to choke off a local clinic who's helping the addicts. Or you can even go and manufacture the drugs for the addicts. I mean, the myriad of the other factions vying for your help, there really is so much out there in this game to do. Right now, I'm 70 plus hours in or so, and I really have just barely scratched the surface of everything this game has. This is all behind the main story thread of discovering Bethesda's take on the history of humanity's journey to the stars, and you discover these strange artifacts, which are just essentially MacGuffins, and you unlock the power of the cosmos itself. Interacting with a variety of NPCs that populate the galaxy so far has been pretty nice. The interlocking story never felt like I was being yanked from one location to another. I always felt like my progress was purposeful. It was steady even when I was diverting from the main questline. When you wander back on track, you feel like you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Whether you're helping or aiding like the authoritarian United Colonies or the Wild West Free Star Collective, or going off to the Crimson Fleet to be a space pirate, or diving into corporate espionage with Ryujin Industries, there is just no lack of adventure in the galaxy right now. On my first playthrough, I found myself going the good guy route and becoming a full-fledged ranger, aka
Space Cops.
of the Free Star Collective, then immediately abandoning the law to help manufacture a highly addictive drug in the cyberpunk city of Neon, all while delving deep undercover for the corporate overlords at Ryujin. It's really quite a journey that never felt forced. But the blessing of an open universe exploration game is also a curse. Bethesda doesn't hold your hand very much, and you're given keys to the universe fairly quickly without knowing most of what the game has to even offer. This leads to a lot of mammals just simply running a few very minor activity quests and thinking there's not much more to the game than some random collection and delivery stuff. A lot of what happens in Starfield happens because of your story progression or actions. For example, you can't even join the Crimson Fleet unless you've reached a certain point of the story or committed certain actions in UC space in order to trigger an opening questline. The problem comes from Bethesda not really giving you much of a push to explore all of their systems in the game, or try out the many different things you could do. It's a lot of trial and error, which is Bethesda's formula. That is their game, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's not bad, but it does inevitably lend itself to some players deciding that the game is as empty as the actual vacuum of space, before going outside of their comfort zones and exploring points of interest on planets, or upgrading and building your own starship, and constructing and managing the network of outposts, and gather and harvesting raw materials, and getting your own player house. There's just a lot to do. You never group up with your companions and go out and talk to them and have them interrupt and talk to you and learn their backstories and personalities and get to know what their purpose is in this universe. And then you combine all of this with a tired combat system. It's Bethesda's interface of doom. It's enough to sour the experience for a lot of people. Almost every game they put out always seems to have a mod immediately come out to fix their user interface, because for some reason they just don't understand how to make one that's not so clunky. Especially if this is your first experience with a Bethesda RPG. Not everybody playing this has played Bethesda games before. I know, it's crazy to think that, but it's true. Now, I know I sound like I'm complaining, and I am, but these are minor nitpicks for what Starfield brings to you overall. There is a lot to keep you engaged as long as you're willing to engage with the world. It's a mixed bag on how you feel with the main story quest. If you don't like the sort of mystical element that the artifacts bring, that's going to kind of turn you off if you're looking for more of a space exploration simulator. You don't want to go out there and explore these ancient temples and that kind of thing, and that, I think, is what turns people off. Now, I'm 70 plus hours into the game, and I'm discovering something new every single time I play. There's a ton to explore and discover, and whatever faults the game may have, it really isn't lack of content. Some have said that the game is as wide as an ocean and deep as a puddle, and that simply isn't the case. At least I haven't found that yet. You may not be able to get into the content that's in the game, but it's there for better or worse. Now, I'm not faulting Bethesda for the things that I nitpicked at this, because it is just the way Bethesda has always done their games. If you're playing this game going in not expecting Bethesda's writing, not expecting Bethesda's story elements, not expecting Bethesda's interaction with the world, you're going to not like it. It's really going to be hit or miss when it comes to this. But for me, it did not bother me as much. I really like the quest so far. Even the main story quest I thought was fine. I thought it had enough hooks, it had enough twists to sort of get you engaged. There was nothing necessarily wrong with it. Now, if you're a writer, if you're an author, if you're a screenwriter, or something like that, or if you critique this sort of thing a lot, I'm sure you're going to find a lot of things wrong with it. This isn't an Academy Award-winning blockbuster or Broadway screenplay type hit. It's a Bethesda story, and it's fine. It is fine for a Bethesda story. Actually, I think it's actually really good for a Bethesda story. The gameplay is fine, other than really the combat itself. The combat really does feel very simple. The AI is terrible. I can't really give credit there because there's nothing to give. It's serviceable. There are enemies there that you can shoot at, and you're going to kill them, and they're going to be in the way of your end goal, but they're not really that challenging overall. If you turn the difficulty up, they take more damage, and they're harder to kill, but they're just turn them into sponges is all you do. It's how dense do you want your bullet sponge to be is basically the question. It doesn't really change their dynamic or the way they act or anything like that. They're always stupid, pretty much. So I do have to discount there. So with all this in mind, I'm going to give Starfield's questing and gameplay a 6.5 out of 10. The points are being docked for the safe but interesting enough main story, the damn clunky Bethesda UI, and the huge lack of getting the player engaged with all the systems so that you can really get out there and explore what the game has without having to rely on just being dragged around by your hit or miss story. One thing I have to say after writing this, I wanted to come back and mention one thing. There is an incredible lack of something in this game that Bethesda is known for, and it's bugs. There really have not been that many bugs in this game. It's surprisingly polished. Yes, there have been bugs, but none of them have been really game-breaking, immersion-breaking. None of them really crashed the game, so I can't fault them for that. I really do want to actually prop them back up for that. The other thing is their starship combat. when you actually get a nice ship put together, even a decent ship put together, and start taking on the other ships and going through and targeting, shutting down their engines, boarding them, taking over shit, you could really get deep into this, mammals, and it is really fun. I can't recommend the space combat enough. Is it groundbreaking? No. Is it amazing? No. But in this game, for what this game has to offer, for what Bethesda has offered before, it's actually a really fun system, and it does. It's really smooth. I never really had any problems with it. I never felt like there was any sort of if I lost in a battle, I did not feel it was because of the system itself or their combat, their space combat itself. It was I was beaten. I screwed up. So I really feel like it's a decent system in this game, and for Bethesda kind of really being their first true sort of like space combat like this, I really want to give them props for that too. So I'm gonna bump them up to a 7.5 out of 10 for their overall questing and gameplay. Yeah, I have to, mammals. It's just the way it is. Now, too often a game is dismissed for its flaws without any credit being given to the absolute heroes of the industry, the art and sound teams. What Starfield may lack in interesting plot, or engaging space travel, or whatever, it makes up for with its visual style and its rich sounds. Now, remember, Bethesda is using an updated version of their old creation engine, with some moderate improvements to the character animations and some procedural generation aspects. No, the character models don't look great. They look fine at best. They aren't remotely close to what can be done with motion capture and other animation technologies, but they are serviceable. And that being said, other than some confusing camera angles, and NPCs are just flat out looking wherever the hell they want, I was never really pulled out of the game by anything too deep in the uncanny valley. You mostly get facial animations about as good as this. The universe, however, is a different story altogether. While reshades exist, the vanilla look of the game is beautiful. The Bethesda art and design team did not disappoint with the attention to detail and coherent visual style of the galaxy and its different inhabitants. Populated areas feel lived in. Even the remote, desolate, and deserted rocky moons have their own way of making you feel both isolated and awestruck. And while many of the worlds are barren fields of rock and dirt, worlds with life do feel alive. The universe is big, and there are a lot of habitable worlds out there, so it's not beyond the realm of possibility that most of what we explore in Starfield will also be empty and desolate. It's up to us to bring life to these worlds, or bring their resources back to the civilized parts of the galaxy that need them. And as you travel the stars, you're accompanied by a beautiful, ethereal soundtrack that feels so rich and engaging that every action feels enhanced and made much more impressive. Combat and environmental music blend together seamlessly, keeping you engaged in the action and immersed in the journey. Weapons and the interactive environment sound effects are spot on, and everything has a very satisfying effect that rarely ever sounds like noise. I can't stress enough how polished even the sneakiest of turds can be when you have an art and sound team working at this level for any project. I have to give the art and sound design a solid 9 out of 10. The only thing keeping this from being a masterpiece is the poor retrofit Creation Engine 2 that is holding back the potential of what this team could have done. Starfield is a beautifully rich and immersive universe, with potential hidden behind their retrofit Creation Engine and lack of engagement with the player and the game systems themselves. If you can get past the disconnection of the inconvenient and disjointed traveling system, then you're in for a fun and satisfying experience as you uncover the history of humanity's journey to the stars, told in a pretty cookie-cutter way. but you can expect love, loss, and the full gamut of emotions as you unravel the secret of the artifacts and what awaits beyond your journey. Even after completing the main story and making the ultimate choice, I was not disappointed. It's not an original idea, but it's a good one, and it gives you some new, unique story choices on your future playthroughs of the game. If you're a fan of Bethesda's RPG experience, I recommend picking this one up. If you can play it on PC, you will have a much better experience with the ever-growing list of community mods and fixes. If you don't want to drop the full AAA game price yet, as of right now you can try it on Xbox Game Pass for the cost of just their subscription. And yes, you can even mod that version. However, if you're expecting a deep, rich space simulator, you're looking at the wrong place. I would even go as far as to say if you're looking for that feeling of deep space exploration, you would probably have a better time with games like No Man's Sky or even Star Citizen. In Starfield, you're only a few clicks away from civilization and humanity. You never feel totally isolated, or like you are out in deep space on your own trying to survive. Starfield is a mildly intriguing space RPG with a clunky interface, but hours upon hours of exploration, all mixed with the Bethesda RPG formula. There's nothing groundbreaking here, and specific elements of the game are done better by others, but at the same time, there's nothing terrible about the game either. It is surprisingly polished for a Bethesda game, and as long as the stories get their hooks into you, you will have a good time. There is unfortunately no saving any RPG if you simply don't like the story or can't get into it. Overall, we're gonna give Starfield a 7.8 out of 10. I'm still playing Starfield right now, and if something major happens that changes my overall outlook, I'll be sure to update it in the pinned comment below. If you like what you see here, please hit that like button, and let me know in the comments down below what other games you'd like to see me review. Subscribe for more gaming reviews and other shenanigans, and as always, thanks for hanging out, mammals.